I'm not sure if there's anything much better than watching JD Vance absolutely obliterate European leaders over the mass migration crisis that has afflicted a lot of countries abroad, particularly and specifically in Europe. If you're somebody who lives in the UK watching this right now, or really living anywhere abroad, I promise you, this is the video for you. I've said this many, many times on this channel. American leadership, American strength equals global leadership, global strength. JD Vance, our vice president, and I would maybe even dare say our future president, and he surely showed it today. You don't want to miss this. He was at the Munich Security Conference today, and he was criticizing European leaders for what he described as the erosion of free speech, particularly highlighting instances in the UK where individuals were legally challenged for silent prayer near abortion clinics. Watch this, amongst other things. I know there's people who have posted on Facebook, and police have actually, in the most totalitarian, Orwellian, psychological, nightmarish way, police have actually showed up at their house over a Facebook post. This proclamation, this declaration by our Vice President of the United States could just be a beckoning call to the world to go back to sanity again and finally eradicate the cancerous disease of DEI woke ideologies. Watch this.
But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. And I say ourselves because I fundamentally believe that we are on the same team. We must do more than talk about democratic values. We must live them. Now, within living memory of many of you in this room, the Cold War positioned defenders of democracy against much more tyrannical forces on this continent. And consider the side in that fight that censored dissidents, that closed churches, that canceled elections. Were they the good guys? Certainly not. And thank God they lost the Cold War. They lost because they neither valued nor respected all of the extraordinary blessings of liberty. The freedom to surprise, to make mistakes, to invent, to build. As it turns out, you can't mandate innovation or creativity, just as you can't force people what to think, what to feel, or what to believe. And we believe those things are certainly connected. And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. And as the judge in his case chillingly noted, Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief. And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own. And after British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility. He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person. But no, this last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law. Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizen suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. And in the interest of comedy, my friends, but also in the interest of truth, I will admit that sometimes the loudest voices for censorship have come not from within Europe, but from within my own country, where the prior administration threatened and bullied social media companies to censor so-called misinformation. Misinformation like, for example, the idea that coronavirus had likely leaked from a laboratory in China. Our own government encouraged private companies to silence people who dared to utter what turned out to be an obvious truth. So I come here today not just with an observation, but with an offer. And just as the Biden administration seemed desperate to silence people for speaking their minds, so the Trump administration will do precisely the opposite, and I hope that we can work together on that. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree.
I'm going to share with you German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius' response, and he gets really, really upset, starts whining about JD Vance's speech. I'm going to share that with you in just a second, but wow. Calm, poised, articulate, erudite, forthright, authentic, speaks with considerable aplomb and conviction. Strong, absolutely unabashed. The truth is on JD Vance's side. He is the epitome of the kind of leadership that America has been missing forever, besides Donald Trump, of course. We are so back. Let me know what you think of JD Vance's speech. By the way, if you want to get one-of-a-kind, original, made in the USA Patriot Nez Nation merch, the link is in the pinned comment down below. Also in the description down below, or just go to professornez.com/merch. professornez.com/merch. Wow. I'm so impressed. I can't wait to read your comments on JD Vance. I am just absolutely blown away by his ability to stand up and speak for millions and millions of the silent majority. I know. Let me know if you live, because we have such a great, vast audience in Germany, in France, in the UK. Let me know you are the silent majority. JD Vance, just like Trump, just like Nixon did years ago, 60 years ago, are speaking for the silent majority, not the loud, purple-haired, outrageous, bombastic few, least common denominator, but for the proud, law-abiding, decent, God-fearing, silent majority. This is your opportunity. Let me know in the comments down below where you're from. Let me know where you're joining me from, what city, state, country, and let me know what you think. Especially, I can't wait to hear from our amazing audience members from abroad. I can't wait to hear from you. Let me know in the comments what you think of JD Vance's amazing, powerful speech at the Munich Security Conference in Germany just today. Here is German Defense Minister Pistorius' response to JD Vance. Not surprisingly, he's not that happy. Check this out.
That's why I cannot just ignore what we heard before. I cannot not comment on the speech we heard by the US Vice President. We fight for your right to be against us. That is the motto, one of the mottos of the Bundeswehr, and it stands for our democracy. This democracy that was just called into question by the US Vice President, and not just the German democracy, but Europe as a whole. He spoke of the annulment of democracy, and if I understood him correctly, he compares the condition of Europe with the condition that prevails in some authoritarian regimes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not acceptable.
Das ist nicht akzeptabel und das ist nicht
This is not acceptable. This is not the Europe, not the democracy where I live and where I conduct my election campaign right now. And this is not the democracy that I witness every day in our parliament. In our democracy, every opinion has a voice. And it makes it possible for parties that are partly extremist, such as the AfD, and they can campaign just as any other party. This is democracy. And if the Vice President had the opportunity to switch on his TV set when he arrived yesterday, he would have seen one of those candidates in primetime TV. By the way, we even admit media that spread Russian propaganda, and the representatives of the federal government answer their questions. Nobody is excluded. But democracy does not mean that a vociferous minority will automatically be right, and they cannot decide what truth is. It does not mean that anyone can say anything, and democracy must be able to defend itself against extremists that try to destroy it. I am happy to live in Europe where this democracy is defended every day against its internal and external enemies. And therefore, I would like to explicitly contradict and oppose the impression that Vice President Vance suggested here, that our democracies oppress and silence minorities. We not only know against whom we defend our countries, but also what we defend it for. It's for democracy, for freedom of opinion, for the rule of law, and the dignity of each and every one, ladies and gentlemen.
I'd love to get your thoughts on what the German defense minister just said there. It seems like he is kind of refusing to see reality. When you've got police officers and you've got Gestapo, essentially, coming after citizens for exercising the very right that he claims to uphold, something's wrong here. And I don't think it takes a genius to realize the massive amounts of tragedies that have plagued Europe and the UK over the past 24 to 36 months have come from exactly the kind of people that we're trying to get rid of here in the United States, criminal illegal migrants. Here's JD Vance's response to Germany. Just a real quick clip. Check this out.
The things that the president and I really believe is that Europe is, of course, a very important ally for the United States. We also think it's really important to recognize that in the future, we think Europe is going to have to take a bigger role in its own security, and obviously Germany, being the biggest economy in Europe, is going to have a major role to play there, and so I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. Mr. President, thank you, and good to see you.
JD Vance has just been on an absolute tear, working tirelessly, just like our president. He also talks very briefly about the Ukraine war. Check this out, with Zelensky looking on at a shared table. Check this out.
We're, of course, happy to welcome the Ukrainian delegation led by President Zelensky. We had a number of fruitful conversations, a number of things for us to follow up and work on. And fundamentally, the goal is, as President Trump outlined it, we want the war to come to a close. We want the killing to stop, but we want to achieve a durable, lasting peace, not the kind of peace that's going to have Eastern Europe in conflict just a couple years down the road. So we had a number of good conversations about how we might accomplish that together, and certainly we'll have many more in the days, weeks, and months to come.
Well, one thing is capital T true, is that JD Vance exhibits presidential aura and presence, and I'm just so super impressed. I've said this in previous videos. I didn't really know that much about JD Vance when Trump picked him months ago before the election even happened. And I was kind of hoping it would be maybe somebody that would kind of throw a monkey in the wrench, somebody like maybe a Ben Carson or somebody maybe like a Byron Donalds or a Vivek. Or a Tulsi Gabbard even, or maybe even an RFK Jr. I thought an RFK Jr. ticket would have been insane, but probably not one that was winning. But now that I have just over the past 4 or 5 months of really digging deep and really seeing what JD Vance is all about, my God, I think not only did he make the most amazing pick, Trump's right about everything. I mean, he's been right about everything. And he was definitely right about picking JD Vance, but I don't see anybody coming close to defeating JD Vance if he wants to run in 2028. The latest polls, oh my God, I haven't even shared this yet. The latest polls in the Democratic Party, they did a kind of run poll. Kamala, Pete Buttigieg, and Gavin Newsom. Kamala's ahead by 20 points or something. Obviously, it's way too early, but it is. If that is any indication, we're not going to lose in 2028 by a long shot. And when I say we, I'm not right or left. I mean the party of common sense. And so it's abundantly clear that the Democratic Party is in absolute tatters and shambles. Their rants, their ravings against Doge, against fraud, waste, and abuse, consistently using the same violent rhetoric, actually calling for arms and calling for cities to be shut down and fighting. It's not working. It's all over. You lost. You got a big fat goose egg. And if you don't change it up, you're going to lose for a long time to come. And I'm happy with that as long as it serves America, it serves American citizens, and it puts America first. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I can't wait to read your comments. Check out these videos coming up on the screen right here, just in case you missed them. Tap my face right there to subscribe and follow. It's absolutely free. And as always, may God bless you and may God bless the USA. I'll see you soon.